Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karvavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsa Chanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. So we finished verse 20 last time of Bhagavad Gita. And the English translation of that was, resting in Brahman with steady intellect and undiluted, the knower of Brahman neither rejoices on obtaining what is pleasant nor grieves on obtaining what is unpleasant. So those were like the lakshana of the sthita prajna that we had studied in chapter 2, and now there is opening up. He was opening up more about it, that whatever comes to him, because he knows he's more established in the Brahman. So that we all did in detail. And now we're going to go to verse 21. And it's the same kind of theme, but it's going to say what you can gain from it. Because a human mind is always like, okay, if I do this, what will I gain? So, because he's speaking to Arjun, and Arjuna is still not totally convinced, has a lot of questions. So they're just opening up more and more. So let's see what this verse is. I'm going to chant and then we're going to see the details of it. Bahyasparsheshva satatma vindatyatmani yat sukham sabrahma yoga yuktatma sukham akshayam ashnute. Bahyasparsheshu is in external context. Asakta Atma, one whose mind is unattached. Vindati, finds. Atmani is in the self. Yata is which. Sukham, happiness. Saha, he. Brahma Yoga Yuktatma, with the self engage in the meditation of Brahman. Sukham, happiness. Akshayam, endless. Ashrute, enjoys. So just to remind you that we did chapter 4, and then the chapter 6 is coming on meditation, and this chapter is like a in between the two, preparing our minds for meditation. That's another way. So here in this verse, a little bit about that is touched upon, what our mindset should be for real, to reach that state of meditation. So he's talking about the master who is asakta, means detach totally. Detach from what? From outside contact. So we know that we have the 5 indriyas, and then there are 5 sense objects outside, and the whole world is made up. And the same theme is going in Kathopanishad also. So this is really great. And we know that is Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Gandha and Rasa. So there is so much variety. There are only 5 elements, but we all know that the 5 is like infinite amount of variety that happens with that 5. So what happens to us is, in the state of ignorance, we get attached. Why do we get attached? Because we do get some pleasure out of it. We kind of don't, we forget that the actual everything is coming from the Brahman only. But the world is constantly changing. But everybody has to agree that we do get some little bits of joy here and there in the world. So because we get pleasure from the world, it's like pleasure hunting becomes like our favorite pastime, so to speak. But so here comparing with realized master versus us. So our journey is from where we want to go to the realized master, where he is. But what is the difference? That the difference is not that the realized master also has the same kind of joy as he comes across, but he's not attached to them. It doesn't chase them. That's the only difference. But because we get, and this is the science of sense objects and sense organs. The science of it is, the moment it comes in contact with it, it gives a result. So it could be negative or positive result, okay? That's a different matter. So if it is conducive to what I want, and if I come in contact through my sense organs, the sense object, I get the immediate result. That's why we get totally like sucked into it and attached, and we kind of forget. As we study more Vedanta, as we understand, then the detachment starts happening slowly. But this is just, telling you the difference between. So it's something like if I love Rasgulla, and if it comes in front of me and I eat it, I get immediate gratification. So that's what it is. And then we again and again run after it because we are seeking that same pleasure. And the vice versa too. If it's something that we don't like, we run away from it. So a realized master doesn't even run away. Whatever comes, he accepts it. That's another difference, okay? So, but what is now meditation versus this attachment? They're exactly opposite to each other. Because to get the sense gratification, we are running out, and meditation means trying to go inward. So that's why it is a two opposite thing. So if because outside pleasure hunting, we can call it, or in going inward, trying to search who you are. So one of the main thing is that, like the Dilli Wale Swami was talking about, that Nikhilanandji, those who are pleasure seekers outside, they cannot meditate. And he actually told a very interesting point, and you will see. So basically, those who believe, it's like a belief also, belief system, that, hey, I believe the pleasure is outside. Then you won't be able to meditate. Slowly, if you break that belief, then you will be. Or somebody is totally convinced or has a faith that, hey, pleasure is outside, then again that person cannot meditate. And sometimes he said that people will sit in meditation and they are like disturbed and all that, whatever. They may put a timer on and the time is over and they were like, oh, thank God it's over. They get joy after it's over. I thought that was such a great point. He said, oh, it's done. I meditated every day, half an hour, done. You say, hey, are you getting pleasure while doing it or afterwards? That tells you that where your mind is. I thought that was fantastic. And then he gave an example that, I don't know if some of you know that story. I know some of you do, about Lord Shiva and Kamdev. He gave that example. That how Lord Shiva sits in meditation, Kamdev comes. He's a lord of desire and kama and all. And Lord Shiva is not at all getting disturbed. वो अपना खूब कर रहा है. फिर उसने बहुत ज़्यादा हल्ला गुल्ला शुरू किया. Because, his purpose was उनका ध्यान तोड़ने के लिए. फिर तो उन्होंने जब आंखें खोली तो उसको भस्मी कर दिया. That's like a realized master, not getting affected at all. It's like totally detached. So now the question is, okay, fine. The realized master is totally detached. What does he gain? Because one of the fear that people have that, oh my God, if I get detached, तो मेरे सारा सुख ही चला जाएगा. मेरी life एकदम नीरस और boring हो जाएगी. This fear is there. So he's saying that no, that person who gets detached and he goes deeper and deeper into, meditative state, he will get peace because the mind will become silent. Of course, with the understanding and all that, not just forcing your mind, but with understanding. Because when the intellect becomes still, that's when you experience the joy inside. That is a science over here. So the pleasure that is happening outside with the senses and all that, that is just an acquired thing. And he gave Nikhilanandji gave a beautiful example of like a person who has an inner beauty versus somebody trying to put a lot of makeup and trying to look good. That's just acquired thing, It get washed away in like 2 minutes. And he even joked. He's saying, पार्टी होएगी 5:30 फिर वो the woman will go to the parlor, get all decked up, और वो पार्टी थोड़ी लेट हो गई तो उसका सारा मेकअप ही बह गया and she cannot do anything. In other words, what he was trying to say is it's temporary. It's not the real beauty. And then another very, very important point is that the outside pleasure that we get, it's dependent on so many conditions. It's not free from conditions. So because you might have everything, but if your mind is not happy for some reason or quiet, cannot enjoy. किसी को स्वर्ग में भी बिठा दो तो वो वहाँ भी बैठ के रोएगा. So many things it dependent on, but जो inside का joy and happiness they're talking about from the Brahman that is bubbling, that is not dependent on anything. And then he also talked about that how the human intellect is constantly doing active. What is it active with? Functioning in the world. What is it active with? Analyzing, judging, commenting. How our mind, you see something and somebody and immediately the judgment starts. Yes, I wo aisa, acha, bura, all those things. And that's what kind of covers it, the real happiness. That's what happens actually. The agitations of the mind, the constant, it's like a ripples on the water. You can't see the substratum, So that's what happens, that it is like the real happiness gets covered by this mind chattering constantly. And the withdrawal from this, making the mind quiet, that is also same thing as yoga. When we talked about yoga, right? So many different definitions. This is another angle of yoga, or important one, that getting identified with the self rather than the outside. And here the word they have used is where is it? युक्तात्मा, योगात्मा. इस यहाँ पर नहीं किया है यूज, मगर यहाँ किया हुआ है. That I was looking for that word. युक्तात्मा. So yoga yuktatma. Okay. So this yoga yuktatma is the one, a person who has abidance in the self, and that person who is yoga yuktatma, he gets this happiness, and the word is used as akshaya. He gets a happiness that does not decay, because kshaya means in Sanskrit the one that decays. Akshaya means the one that does not decay. And what kind of happiness is this? Inexhaustible happiness, all pervading, infinite, because the science is the Brahman is all pervading, inexhaustible and infinite. If something is infinite, वहाँ से joy आ रहा है, तो वो joy भी infinite ही होगा ना? Correct? Because we always say कि the joy is so much, and I think somewhere in the Shastras it is mentioned that we think that there is joy in the world. Everybody agrees there is some joy in the world, with sense organs and all that. There is somewhere it says that agar you take up all the joys of all the pranis from time immemorial, you take an ant versus Brahmaji, वहाँ तक ले जाओ तुम, सारा joy इकट्ठा कर लो उसको. That joy is supposed to be just a drop in the ocean of the infinite. Like they're trying to give you some measure, I think, of what this realized person feels. We cannot comprehend it actually. So I thought this is an amazing thing. And then Dilliwale Swami, he was talking about it, that how if you take a drop of an ocean versus the ocean, what is the comparison to it, right? Ocean is so vast. So that's where this joy is there, that this person experiences that kind of joy. We cannot fathom it right now, But so many people who are in that state say it. So we have to just kind of try to say, oh my God, in my life, what was the happiest I was? And they just multiply by like million to it. That's how I would say that we have to look forward to, which is quite amazing. Just thinking about it makes us happy, So for a seeker now, what can we do? Because obviously we are not there yet, So what we have to do, we have to learn to withdraw our attention more and more from outside, at least when we sit in the meditation, to get to that state. And we will experience that the more we withdraw, the peaceful we will get. Okay? So this is more like, as I was saying, this verse really is a nice verse to prepare us for that meditation that will be coming in chapter 6. And obviously we need vairagya for that, dispassion from the world. And the next verse is going to talk about that, and we will do that next time, even though I'm kind of finishing up early. But I think Kathopanishad will require a lot more time for that verse. So I'm going to kind of just do one verse, but we still have to read. But any question, any comment, anybody wants to add anything? What we discussed?
Umaji, it's like they say this worldly pleasures are like a shadow.
Very good, yes.
That is also another example.
Yes.
Yeah.
We are chasing the shadow, true. Yeah. So it's like different ways we can get convinced. Anilji?
Another thing I noticed is the difference between finite joy and infinite joy. And this reminded me of Nachiketa. He was even offered heaven,
right,
which is finite.
Yes.
And he said, no, I don't want it.
Because उसने जब शास्त्र पढ़ा ना, तो उसने बड़े ध्यान से पढ़ा. तो उसको वो बोला कि जब इनफाइनाइट मिल रहा है, तो फाइनाइट में क्यों लूं? Because that's exactly the point, that हम लोग पढ़ के भी हम लोग को इतना convince नहीं होता है. That's why we cannot run after the finite joy. We are not still convinced. Nachiketa was convinced. That's why he didn't give up. So that's a very good point. Yeah, true. And to me, this point is a very good one. That why it is infinite joy, because the Brahman is infinite. कोई चीज infinite होगी, उसका joy भी infinite होगा. हम लोग सोचते कि क्यों? But that is a very good logic there. Why it is infinite.
And also infinite is never exhausted.
Exactly. That's why it's like, तुमको जो चीज मिल रही है जो कभी exhaust नहीं होगी, तो why you want to take something that's going to just finish? True.
But the joy that you get, the temporary joy, it is the same, except it is for the short time. But what you feel inside, there is a joy and there is contentment. Sometimes it's just bubbling. The temporary one is just bubbling out, and that's the joy. You feel really happy. But if you see, sometimes you have the contentment in you, which is different than the...
Okay, so that's where we were. Remember at one time, we had that discussion. Joe was saying that, why do we feel happy? Little thing. And the whole science is, happiness is not coming from the object, first of all. It's a wrong idea. Because that's why the same thing can give somebody a pain. And somebody and alcohol is the best example. The people who don't drink, उनके सामने रख दो तो उनको लगता है क्या बदबू वाली चीज ले आए हो. और जो लोग addicted हैं alcohol से, तो उसको लगता है ये तो सबसे अच्छा अमृत आ गया मेरे सामने. So the same thing cannot. Bottle is not capable of giving. It's your relationship, right? That's one thing. Point. The joy actually is happening. The joy is of Brahman only because your mind is quiet. So when your desire gets fulfilled, temporarily your agitation is gone, the substratum joy is up. So in the ultimate sense, the little joy that we see in the world, that's just a glimpse of that permanent joy only. But we are just going in the wrong direction for it.
True.
Yeah, and then if we start believing that the joy in the world is there is a joy in the world and we keep running after it, in the end, there is dukhi aata hai. And that's exactly what the next verse is going to tell you, that it's a dukkha yoni. It's a womb of sorrow. Because even somebody loves rasgulla, it's the best example. You give him one, he's very happy. You give him two, he's ecstatic. 3 में तो वो स्वर्ग में पहुंच गया. फिर उसको बोला और खाते जाओ. फिर 5 और 6 में तो बोलेगा कि नहीं, और 7, 8 में तो sick हो जाएगा. He will throw up. So that is the best example that there. But here it's exactly opposite. Like infinite joy, like the way Anilji was saying. That is like there's no bound to it. So you are in it and उसमें डूब ही रहे हो तुम ज़्यादा. So yeah, we have to, once we know the whole science about it, where the joy is coming from, then you will go for the real thing. Like Krishna ji said, don't go for the shadow, go for the light. Shadow तो आता जाता रहता है, कभी बढ़ता है कभी कम होता है, right? शाम को जाओ यहाँ पर कितना लंबा अपना shadow हो जाएगा.
So that's with the understanding. Once you get the understanding,
yes.
True, then you go in the right direction.
Yeah, and then nobody's saying that if something comes to you, don't enjoy. They are not like, if the rasgulla hai, he will eat it, he will enjoy it, but he also knows that this is temporary.
Mm-hmm.
And he will, in fact, he will thank God. Arey wah, mere liye rasgulla bhej diya aaj Bhagwan ne. He will still remember God in that. That's the beauty. That's the beauty in it. Yes. So yeah. Anybody else has any point? Okay, who wants to read? Any volunteers?
Joy is also a glimpse of that infinite Anand.
Yes. Yeah, that's exactly what we discussed. Yes, true.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, I have a doubt.
Yeah.
What is the meaning of Vindatmani?
Let's go back.
Bahya Spashesva Sakatma Vindyatmani. What is the meaning?
Vindati here, it says finds. So, means the person, it is, see, I'm not I'm not a Sanskrit scholar by any means.
No.
So I'll just go with.
To understand it.
Yeah,
I just want
yeah.
to understand.
So here basically he's saying that so there are two different people, right? One is a realized soul.
Yes.
One you can call it a seeker. In fact, 3 people we can call it: realized soul, seeker, and somebody who doesn't believe in any of that, right?
Yes.
So the person whose mind gets unattached, means that realized soul, he finds the infinite joy in the self. That's what it means.
Okay, I understand.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Okay, any volunteers to read? Sushil ji, you want to read? Oh, you have the other book, right? Sorry. So maybe Meena ji can read. Yeah.
With the self unattached to external contacts, he finds happiness in the self. With the self engaged in the meditation of Brahman, he attains endless happiness. The foregoing stanza might give an unprepared student the idea that spiritual life is a static existence where a baked stony heart vainly comes in contact with the heart throbs in the world of objects and feels for itself nothing but a monotonous equanimity. In that case, a majority of us, without much discussion, can take our hats off and say goodbye to all spirituality immediately. For who can deny the fact that the world as it is constituted today, in spite of its imperfections, when it comes in contact with our own inner world, however maladjusted the inner world may be, can and does give minute flashes of joy. Why should I deny myself the brilliant flashes of momentary joys in exchange for a steady, stone-like, impregnable monotony? Call it equilibrium or equanimity, peace or godhood. By changing the name, the thing itself is never changed.
So here Swamiji has given such a detailed description of why somebody will not go after spirituality if they think that, oh my God, I'm giving up all these joys and then I'm going to become such a boring person, just monotonous. And like to me, there were a lot of Gnostics who had joined, they got impressed with Swamiji and they came. So they had this idea before that, like even in India, sometimes I remember, one of my neighbor actually used to go to Chinmaya Ashram. At that time, I didn't know anything about Chinmaya Mission at all. I was like very young, below 10. And this girl was like only like 15, 16 years old. And she's actually head of one of the centers now in India. She was like my neighbor's cousin. And she told me that she goes to this ashram, and I was like so surprised. I said, why do you go to ashram? Only old people go to ashram. I actually asked her that because I found it very strange that somebody 15, 16-year-old is actually going and following a Swami. Like I could not understand that. So because they say, oh, this is for some old people or something, So here Swamiji is giving that, hey, if somebody thinks that I'm going to, become like a monotonous person, just sit there like a boring person, that's not what I want, then forget it. I'm not going to go into this line, that kind of thing. Let's see what he says next.
This doubt is not a mere exaggeration. This is often heard in the halls of Vedanta from the lips of all sincere seekers. Any sensible seeker entering the halls of spiritual study with his intellect bright and clear should come to doubt its efficacy and utility. No teacher can afford to ignore answering these questions and reassuring the students. Krishna, as a professional teacher, is doing the same in this stanza.
Yeah, so he's just saying that this doubt is a very genuine doubt that seekers in the beginning definitely ask. And I forgot to tell you one thing about that girl who was like 15 years old and I was young. When I asked her like that, she said, oh, he's not like any other Swami. He's a very modern Swami. She told me those words like 40 years ago. She told me, that. And I was like, I was wondering, I wonder who that is, And then only after I came to Houston, I got connected with Chinmaya Mission. Then I remembered this story. And I had shared this story over there, one time they wanted us to speak on Swamiji for the people who had met him. And I never met him. So I met him only through other people. So I just shared this, that, all of a sudden I had the curiosity in my head. I want to meet this modern Swami, so-called, what is he all about? But now we know. So anyway, so he's just saying that even Krishna Bhagavan is answering in this verse that what you will gain, by following this path.
The one who has gained complete detachment from the external objects realizes the bliss that is the nature of the self. Though the process of self-development is essentially a process of detachment, this technique of negation does not take us to an empty and purposeless zero, but when we have negated all that is false, we come to experience and live a total positivity. When the dreamer has renounced all his contacts with the dream world and thrown away his dream personality, he does not become a non-entity, but he rediscovers himself to be the more vital, the more effective personality, the waker.
That's such a beautiful example. That the dreamer is gone, he doesn't become nothing. He actually becomes waker himself. That's the best example. And the other thing I was thinking, in Buddhism, they have this word called shunya. That it is shunya, which gives us a very kind of, I'm not trying to put Buddhism down by any means because there are some fantastic thing in it, but I'm just telling the difference between Vedanta and Buddhism, that like some people believe that Buddha was silent on the topic of God. He was just more focused on how to get rid of suffering. So suffering, because he said the whole world is constantly changing, and if you put your mind in the changing, you're going to suffer. So it's exactly same as Vedanta. But what they call as shunya, Vedanta calls as purna. That is a huge difference, because it's like, hey, you're giving this small thing, but you're getting completeness, infinity, all those things. So it's like you are actually giving up a very, very small thing to get something biggest. That's how in Vedanta it is looked at. Okay, so this is why he's saying that it is like, it's not purposeless zero or anything, but you get total positivity. So I think one time one doctor, he was a psychiatrist, I met him at some conference, and he's the one who told me that the Hinduism, they call it Hinduism, we call it Sanatan Dharma, that it's a very positive dharma, positive religion. Exactly because of that. Because it's like, I was talking to my 10th grade students last Sunday, and I said, we were talking about verse 11 of chapter 2, where Krishna Bhagavan introduces, that we are eternal, 11 and 12. I said, did any college or any school ever tell you are eternal? So they said, no. They always say, you can't do this, you can't do that. I said, that's why you come to Chinmaya Mission, because that's where you learn that you are eternal. And they felt so good. I said, look, like, you are complete. You are, like everything you got. And you can do anything, It's such an amazing thing to tell somebody, or to know, to even think about that way, So I think that's what the difference between, Vedanta and some of the other line of thinking is, that here it is like telling you completeness, totality, infinity.
Similarly, whenever contacts with the external world through the media of the body, the mind, and the intellect are clipped off clean, we awaken to the meadows of God consciousness and come to live the joy that is the eternal nature of the self. A seeker, having thus redeemed his own mind and intellect from their preoccupations with the external world, at least during his meditation, when he comes to keep his heart devoted to the meditation of Brahman, attains imperishable happiness. Here the term heart is to be understood as a collective name for the inner instruments of knowing and experiencing.
So he's just giving you some more clues that, because some people might say, oh, does that mean, like we talked about it, that should I not enjoy the world? Hey, go and enjoy it. Just know that it is temporary. Okay, that's one first thing. And then when you're sitting for meditation, that's when you need a complete withdrawal. Because like another way that somebody was explaining, which was very nice way, hey, when you're sitting in meditation, it's just you and God. That time, neither you are a wife, daughter, brother, sister, nobody you are, So you have to just, because all the other relations are, it's now that we have studied Vedanta to this extent, they're temporary relations. They're going to keep changing. You might come across in another life the same people, but they're not going to have the same relationship. They might be somebody else of yours, but the relationship with Brahman is the strongest, biggest, forever, and all that. So that's one point. And then we have discussed that when they Vedanta, they talk about heart. It is not the instrument, pumping instrument they're talking about. They're talking about, where your mind and intellect merge, and it's like the whole thing, the spiritual heart, it kind of pervades our whole body. And now the science also is saying that they call it gut feeling. Because they found out that in guts also there are things, receptors. My husband will explain, he's a scientist. I don't know much about all that. But heart is in the gut also. Because Vedanta already knew it. It's all over. And then it's also a collective name for inner instrument. Subtle instrument of knowing and experiencing. Here, that's what heart is called. So there are a few things that we have already studied, but he opened it up more. So there's the last line, connecting line you want to read?
Oh, for the following reasons also, he should withdraw the sense from the external world of objects.
So he's just saying that he's going to give one more reason in the next verse. And I gave you a hint already. He's going to talk about that how this contact with the senses, they are dukkha yoni, means it's like, it's going to lead to just misery only. Joy शुरू में लगेगा, end में misery ही आएगी उससे. That's another reason you don't want to indulge it with that, or not have attachment. That's the better word. Not have attachment to it. So we finish reading. And
there is also that if you have attachment, you're again building vasanas, more of vasanas.
Yeah, you are going in the chakkar again. Exactly.
वो चक्कर में ही आ जाओगे. Yeah, that's what it is.
And whole idea is to break away from that chakkar.
Yeah.
लेकिन उमा जी, you can enjoy these sparks of joy here and there without being attached to them.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. And in fact, if you really do enough contemplation on it, the person who is totally detached enjoys the most.
Right.
It's like if I'm playing a game and I don't care about winning and losing, I just play because I love it.
Right.
I'll be in the most, if I constantly think, I'm going to get the trophy, I'll be miserable throughout my game. So it's something like, hey, you already have like $1 billion. And now if a little bit comes here and there, it's fine. You're not going to worry about it. Either you lose or win or nothing. Right? So if you already have infinity, so little bit in the world you get or don't get, it's like playing a game. That's why they say, they use the word in Sanskrit, krida. This world is like a, krida ground for the Bhagwan. Because for us, we come here and we kind of get involved and we get miserable, but you just rejoice, And the other example I was thinking of, somebody who is a very, very rich man, and now you say, usko acting mein interest hai, samjho. तो वो बोलेगा कि I want to play this beggar's role. वो इतना अच्छा beggar का role करेगा because you have nothing to worry about. Because his $1 billion is sitting there. That's how this, हम लोग सोच नहीं पाते हैं कि look, I am eternal, I am infinite, I am thrown on this world. Why don't I learn to be detached, play the game, and then I can get that infinitude, Something like that. I don't know if that made sense, that example, So that's how it is. That person who is completely detached enjoys the most because he has no fear. He becomes fearless. Many different things are connected with this statement. You can catch it from many different angles. True. Any other point? Anybody has a question, comment, want to add anything?
Kumaji, just for our discussion for a few minutes on.
Yeah.
While we say that we have to get detached, it is extremely difficult to get detached.
True. And I think that's why we are called seekers. So what we need to do is more and more churn on the idea, more and more. And just to give a little overall picture, because in chapter 6, Bhagwan is going to talk about meditation, right? Whole technique, how to sit, what to do, everything.
Okay.
Khana, pina, ye wo. And then say, okay, meditate upon the self. But our teacher in Houston, she used to say, okay, somebody says, meditate on halabulu. Will you be able to meditate on halabulu? No, I don't know what halabulu is. So it's saying that next 6 chapter is going to tell you, what the nature of God is.
Right.
So the more we learn who God is, the more automatically I will meditate upon it. So that's the whole journey of Bhagavad Gita. But, like each chapter, Krishna Bhagwan is like opening the layers of it. And we are going deeper and deeper. And a lot more is coming now. A lot more is coming.
But it is said that for meditation, you have to have the mind which is not agitated. Mind has to be, concentrated. Mind cannot be concentrated if you have, the sense objects constantly troubling your mind, and the attachment comes to your mind. So it is like a vicious circle. In order for you to get into meditation, you have to have a clear mind.
True.
But he cannot have clear mind because of the sense object and attachment, and you need to get detachment. So for the detachment, you have to get meditation. So this is where I sometimes get confused.
So I think in chapter 6, Arjun asked exactly the same question. My mind is like a powerful hurricane. You know, and I don't know how to control it. You telling me control the mind, and how can I do it? So he gave two points: abhyas and vairagya. That's it. Abhyas is okay. My mind doesn't sit. Keep trying, and vairagya will only come when we know the nature of God and what is my relationship with it. That's the only way it's going to come. So it's a journey that you slowly take. I know it looks like a catch-22 right now, but if you really contemplate upon it, there is a definite way out. And Krishna Bhagwan, the amazing thing is when Arjun said that, oh, my mind is like this, wild wind, I cannot control. So Krishna Bhagwan didn't say, nahi, aisa nahi hai. He said, that's true, it is, Arjun, it is like that. Don't worry, I accept it. But then he gave the 2 remedy. So we have to just continue our sadhana, and it gets better. Definitely. You see, watch yourself, will get better. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay. So, shall I close?
Yeah, beautiful. You reminded me of the quote, Rumi's quote. When I searched for God, I found myself. And when I searched for myself, I found God.
How beautiful. Very, very nice.
So that is Rumi's quote.
Yeah.
Said,
they just give you so much kind of chill that, oh my God, somebody thinking so deep, and they're so beautiful. They're like poetic, but they're so deep. And, and in Bhagavad Gita, they have used the word kavi for Brahman.
Yes.
Kavi Puranam, it comes in chapter 8, because kavis are the ones that go beyond this world to think something more, something higher, something subtler, something, divine, because they have that power, in their mind. That's why Rumi and all these different poets. And there is one Khalil Gibran from he's also amazing. How much insight into relationships and God and everything. So true, very nice. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Okay, I'm gonna close Bhagavad Gita here, and then we'll go to Kathopanishad. Sarvadharman parityajya mamekam sharanam vraja aham tva sarva papebhyah moksha ishyami ma shuchah. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. See, one of the things, Prabhakarji, I wanted to tell you is that this next 6, from 7 chapter onwards, almost 11th, whatever the Krishna Bhagavan is going to talk about, who Brahman is, that's going to help us a lot in meditation, because that's when the mind will stop running in the world, because it will sound so beautiful and fantastic, you would want to think about those things. So that's another way that it's going to happen. So I think a lot great things are coming. Okay, so for Kathopanishad, let me do the prayer first. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. So we finished verse 10 of Valli 3. And I had talked about it, that how verse 10 and 11 go together, but they are this is very kind of little bit tough, little bit deep, but this is how Vedanta explains. And the whole idea is, okay, now I know that I have to reach that Brahman, but exactly what your question was, Prabhakarji, that the sense organs are there. How do I go take this journey? So it's giving you another way of reaching there. And it's telling you the science. So in what verse 11, what we saw, sorry, verse 10, what we saw was that we have sense organs which look so powerful. They are so subtle. They can do so many things and, grasp so many things. Our sight and our sound and our taste and our touch. Amazing. So we think they're so subtle. But then we took the discussion we did that how here is saying sense objects in their like elemental form is more subtler. And then we did the whole discussion that the elements came first, then the sense organs came. That's why. And then it talked about that your mind is subtler than the sense objects. And we know why, because mind can grasp everything. And then they said intellect is even subtler than this. Intellect can go beyond even mind where nobody has gone before, and all that. And then it talked about, hey, beyond the intellect, there is Mahan Atma, they call it, which is like the totality. Macrocosm versus macrocosm, microcosm versus macrocosm. So it's the totality. And then the best example is you take one drop of water and there is a whole ocean. In essence, they are the same. It's H2O. But a drop of water versus ocean, how much difference is there? If you take a total thing, there's a more